ESPN's Adam Schefter has just revealed the Aaron Rodgers timeline that he believes the four-time NFL MVP could sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And on today's edition of Steelers Talk, we're going to be breaking down what Schefter had to say about Rodgers and when he could potentially sign with the black and gold. And also, stay tuned for later in the show here where I'm going to give you guys my 5 takeaways after the first day of Steelers OTA practice held earlier today in Pittsburgh. But before we get into all of today's Steelers coverage, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you want this Rodgers saga to be over. I've been ready for this thing to be over for months at this point, guys. And if you're with me on that and you want Rodgers to you-know-what or get off the pot, click that thumbs up icon and get today's show started. Okay, so let's start here with what Adam Schefter had posted this weekend. He actually shouted out, your boy here, Jack Sperry, took our video, just poached it right off of my account there and said Aaron Rodgers was asked at an event this weekend whether he would even consider playing for the Bears, and in turn might have provided a hint of his plans for the 2025 season. The video he used was from Jack Sperry, so that's pretty cool to see this weekend. But the latest from Schefter is he went on ESPN and he provided the latest on the Rodgers situation. He's still steadfast that Rodgers is going to eventually sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, probably before mandatory minicamp. Schefter said, it certainly seems like he's coming back and to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, by the way, continued to just wait and wait and wait for him. The Steelers have a minicamp June 10th through the 12th. I think in the next 2 weeks, it's logical to deduce that we'd have to hear something from Aaron Rodgers about coming back. He made it clear he is not going to go to play in New Orleans. He didn't make it clear he wasn't going to play in Pittsburgh. In fact, he brought up the fact that Pittsburgh plays in Chicago this year, a place he loves to play. I think everybody thinks he will decide to play and in Pittsburgh. So some pretty strong words there from Schefter saying, quote unquote, everybody thinks Rodgers will play and everybody thinks he's going to play for Pittsburgh. Now, according to Schefter, Pittsburgh's actually willing to wait until September 7th, week 1 of the NFL season, for Aaron Rodgers to sign his contract. Now, I do think this is a little bit of an exaggeration. I actually think the Steelers are willing to wait until around training camp. I think that they're willing to wait until then because they do want to go into training camp with 4 quarterbacks on the roster. And if he's not on the roster, they're going to sign a different quarterback. That's just the way that it's going to go because that's the way the Steelers operate. I don't think they're going to wait until week 1 to sign him. But the point is they're willing to wait really as long as it takes this offseason to make sure he is on this roster for the start of training camp in Latrobe at the end of July. And Schefter definitely seems pretty sure of himself. And, you listen to other reporters out there, Jeremy Fowler, Tom Pelissero, other people that have, knowledge of the situation, where the Steelers feel about the situation. They seem pretty sure that Rodgers is eventually going to sign on the dotted line. But like everybody else, including the Steelers, we're just waiting on the firm and final word from Aaron Rodgers as to whether or not he's going to sign and when he will sign on the dotted line. Personally, I still feel really confident. I'm right there with Schefter, with Rappaport, with Fowler, with Pelissero, all those guys that are saying they're confident Rodgers will sign with the team. I'm right there with them. I don't know exactly when he's going to sign, but I do feel pretty confident that eventually he will be the week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Now, something that was interesting that Adam Schefter also said on ESPN today was it's amazing that a proud organization would be at the mercy of a player like this, talking about Aaron Rodgers, and just waiting for an answer from him. Now, I think that this is a narrative surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, this is such a bad look. How embarrassing. They're being held hostage by Aaron Rodgers. This isn't like the Steelers. Listen, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the last organization in the world, and Mike Tomlin's the last head coach in the world to care about what people outside of the building think of them, all right? They're doing what they feel like is best for the football team, and what they feel like is best for the team is to go and get Aaron Rodgers. He's been their guy all offseason. They preferred him over Justin Fields. They preferred him over Russell Wilson. They preferred him over Sam Darnold. He has been their quarterback target since the beginning of free agency, and they haven't budged off of him, all right? So I think that what they're doing is that they've actually been very, very strong on this. They identified the quarterback that they want, that they feel gives them the best chance to win. They haven't wavered from that, and they have stood on business, despite the fact that the fans have been clamoring and have been complaining this entire offseason about this entire saga. Pittsburgh feels like Aaron Rodgers is their guy. Now, if he's not and he sucks, then that's going to look really bad on the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. And that's the way that, that's the only thing that failure is going to be popping up here is if Rodgers flakes or if he's just straight up terrible Both of them are still possible at this point because he hasn't signed on with the team and he hasn't had success with the football team. But plain and simply, guys, like Mike Tomlin and the Steelers understand that if Aaron Rodgers comes here and he has success, the truth of the matter is nobody's going to remember how long the wait was for Aaron Rodgers. Nobody's going to care how long they had to wait for him. If Aaron Rodgers comes here and they win 11, 12 games, if they win the division, if they win a playoff game, if they make an AFC championship game, if they get close to winning a Super Bowl this year or next, like no one's going to care how long it took to get him. Now, people will remember the wait if he stinks or if he decides to leave them out to dry. And if those two things happen, then absolutely Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan need to be held accountable for that. But the truth of the matter is, the Pittsburgh Steelers understand that if Rodgers comes here and if he is successful, like the way that they expect him to be, nobody's going to care at the end of the day how long it took to get him. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, my 5 takeaways after day 1 of OTA practices for the Pittsburgh Steelers held in Pittsburgh earlier today. But before we get into that, somebody that was present at OTAs today wasn't Aaron Rodgers, wasn't even DK Metcalf. We'll talk about him in here in just a second. But Derrick Harmon, the first-round pick, was there. He's going to be wearing number 99 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you guys want to get his jersey from our friends at Fanatics today, you can go chatsports.com/Harmon and pick up your Derrick Harmon jersey today. You guys can use our link, chatsports.com/Harmon, to pick up your jersey. And it actually helps us out here at Steelers Talk as well, guys, because if you get that jersey and you use our link and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds for that jersey purchase. So if you guys want to get a Derrick Harmon jersey, if you're planning on getting one and you want to help out the channel in the process, you can go chatsports.com/Harmon to make that happen today. All right, now let's get into my takeaways from day 1 of organized team activities, otherwise known as OTAs. OTAs are voluntary here, guys. So, there's certain players and certain veterans that didn't show up for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I do want to remind you guys that not much is going on right now at OTAs. It's a lot of drill work. It's pretty much an excuse for players to come into the building, put on the helmet and, do some drill work with coaches, spend time with their teammates, start learning the playbook, meet with their teammates, all that different stuff. You're not really doing a whole lot of true football stuff, which is probably why Aaron Rodgers hasn't shown up, and that's really what he's interested in at this point in his career. He is 41 years old, and it seems like the players inside the Steelers locker room are unbothered by Aaron Rodgers' absence, all right? And even Cam Heyward, who is the captain and the soul and really the voice of the locker room, said that he doesn't really care if Aaron Rodgers is there at OTAs or not. This is a direct quote from Cam after practice today when asked if he cares if Rodgers is at OTAs. He says, "I don't care. Who says you can't be better?" I think he means can't get better if you aren't here. To each his own. So obviously Cam Heyward, somebody that's been in the NFL locker room for a very long time. He's even gone away from voluntary OTAs in some years, including last year. Like, if the players aren't bothered for Aaron Rodgers not wanting to be there, why is the media and why are the fans so upset about this? I mean, right now, like I said, you're not really doing all that much. Now, would I prefer Rodgers to be there, and would it be better if he was kind of enthusiastic about being there and building up that relationship and chemistry and trust with his receivers and with his center and with Arthur Smith before we get going during training camp? Of course. I mean, I think the more reps, the better. But is it like a disqualifying thing where if you're not at OTAs as a 41-year-old veteran that's going to be on his way to the Hall of Fame, that you miss some voluntary OTAs? Honestly, it's not a disqualifying thing for me. And if he doesn't even want to show up to mandatory minicamp at this point, I would still prefer him over anybody that's going to be here during phase 3 of the offseason program. So you tell me down there in the comment section, is Rodgers missing OTAs a big deal? The players and Cam Heyward certainly don't seem to think so, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Yes or no? Simple answer. Give me a yes or no down there in the comment section. So now, Aaron Rodgers was not the only veteran that took practice off today. TJ Watt and DK Metcalf are also missing from the building today at the start of voluntary OTAs. Obviously, TJ Watt is going through a contract dispute with the team. Probably doesn't want to practice until he gets the money that he feels like he is worthy of. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if TJ Watt misses mandatory minicamp as well. And then DK Metcalf has been in the building for much of phase 1 and phase 2, but decided not to show up for practice today. And honestly, his absence might be an indication that he feels like Rodgers is eventually going to sign with the team, because maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to be there, with Mason Rudolph throwing him the football, because he doesn't feel like he's going to be throwing him the football much this season anyway. He's worked out with Aaron Rodgers this offseason. Rodgers has apparently been in communication with DK throughout this offseason. I would say if there's anyone on the Steelers roster that knows what Rodgers is going to do, it would be DK. And if Rodgers gave him the word like, hey, man, I'm not going to show up to early OTAs, maybe DK was also like, you know what, I don't need a backup quarterback throwing me the football. I'd rather work out on my own. Another thing that I took away from practice today is an encouraging answer that we got from Roman Wilson on his development this year. Now, Roman definitely looked good out there. Now, it's OTAs. People overreact to OTA clips all the time. It's just drill work, but he looked smooth. He looked like he was back to fully healthy, which is good. But Nick Farabaugh from Penn Live tweeted this out earlier today. Roman Wilson came into year 2 highly motivated. Wilson worked on route indicators, his body level, his blocking technique, and maintaining his burst in and out of breaks. Quote, I think with everything I've said, there's some urgency to it. You got to get going. I'm ready for it. So Roman certainly seems to have some urgency to not only get on the field, but to be an instant impact for the Steelers offense. And with them trading away George Pickens, there's going to be a lot asked of Roman Wilson this year, and I'm excited to see this young man play. I mean, everybody that I've talked to that has seen Roman Wilson, play and it has been in the building, everybody is talking about how excited they are for Roman Wilson's future. And, he was somebody that I was very high on coming out of Michigan as a slot weapon, and I think that he can absolutely fulfill that role here in the Steelers offense. And I'm excited to see what the young man's going to be able to do in his sophomore season here in the National Football League. Another takeaway, talking about offensive weapons here, Pat Freiermuth says he's ready to step up in a receiving role this year, even if the Steelers do not add another wide receiver to the room after trading away George Pickens. This is what Muth had to say after practice today. I'm not really thinking about it too much. If there's more of a role for me, great. I'm fully capable of picking up that role. If we add another guy in the receiver room, great. We'll see if people end up coming or whatever, but I'm excited about the guys we have right now. And Pat Freiermuth is one of the best receiving tight ends in the National Football League. I'm not really worried about him whatsoever. I would really like to add another receiver to this room, and it sounds like Muth would like the team to add another receiver to this room, even with guys like Robert Woods and Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson there in supplementary roles to DK Metcalf. But I think most of us would acknowledge, including Muth, that this team could certainly use another weapon offensively. And the final takeaway from OTA's day 1 is that Beanie Bishop Jr. confirmed that he's going to be starting the offseason program here as the number 1 slot corner. Now, obviously, there's other people that the Steelers brought in. Brandon Echols, Dante Kent, a 7th-round pick, Sebastian Castro, UDFA, that was very highly touted. Beanie's not just going to be handed the job here, but, talking about Roman Wilson and his growth in the slot this year as a receiver, it sounds like Beanie's making a similar type of impact in the slot at corner. Farabaugh put this out earlier today as well. Steelers slot cornerback Beanie Bishop says he has reworked his body this offseason. He spent most of his offseason in Pittsburgh working with the Steelers staff to do so. He cut a lot of fat for muscle in hopes it would make him a stronger, more explosive player. He also grew out his hair quite a bit, so he's definitely looking pretty groovy. And I'm definitely rooting for Beanie this year. He's a little bit undersized, but hopefully that added strength that he put on this offseason is going to help him kind of hold up better in coverage. You could definitely tell that lack of strength and play strength affected his game last year in coverage when he went up against bigger, stronger wide receivers that went into the slot to go up against him. But Beanie's got a nose for the football, and I always like players that create interceptions and turnovers. The Steelers like that as well. So he's going to have every opportunity to win this job. But there's certainly going to be competition coming his way over the next several weeks and months. All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. We got daily OTA updates right here on Steelers Talk, as well as daily updates on the Steelers quarterback situation. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.